Welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, Jordan and I are diving into one of the most influential books of the last couple of decades, which is called Good to Great by Jim Collins. We, a little while ago, decided to start a book club.
Yes.
And this was the first book that we chose.
Yes.
We did, after the first kind of 6 weeks, we did a recap. We did like an online live session with the free community in Inflection. And we got a lot of really great feedback, so we've decided to turn it into a podcast episode.
Yes.
And the reason we chose the book is because it's packed with so many sort of great insights into what separates good companies from great companies, and then why so many companies never actually take the leap from being a good company to a great company. So whether you're starting something up in Sydney, you've got a regional business in Victoria, wherever you kind of are in Australia, the lessons in Good to Great are incredibly relevant and really valuable. So we are today unpacking top 5 takeaways that we have from the book, and really kind of diving into sort of our own perspectives and reflections on those key takeaways, I guess. So George, when was the first time you kind of came across Good to Great?
I read it probably about 6 months ago, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think maybe Owen told me to read it. I can't remember if it was Owen or someone else, but yeah, I think it was awesome. There was a few really good talking points in there. My personal favorite, sorry, I'm going to jump around. Is that Hedgehog concept, which is essentially like the intersection between 3 key areas. So something that you can be the best in the world at, what you're super passionate about, and then something that can drive growth. So that sweet spot in the middle. And I think the other one that I spoke about when we did the live book club, it was that flywheel and how that works. So essentially through small, consistent efforts over time and making progress, which can create a flywheel effect. So it was something that when we first started Grayspace that I had never heard this concept before, but now I know what it is, and I look back and go, we were caught in that doom loop where you just make those rash decisions and jump around and try this, we've got to do that, we've got to do this. So it was interesting to read this chapter, and I was like, yes, I've been that, I've done that. I've done that wrong thing.
So what is, I mean, maybe for context, if people haven't read the book, what is the flywheel effect?
The flywheel effect is essentially building greatness through a series of like small, consistent wins over time. And that just gains momentum.
Okay.
So that was my understanding of it. And the opposite to that, which is Grayspace at the start, was a business that makes like rash decisions, inconsistent, and they say, trapped in the doom loop, just poor performance round and round.
Chasing quick wins.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not gaining that momentum of a flywheel as opposed to those quick doom loop wins, if you want to call them that.
Why do you think so many businesses, because I think chasing quick wins and like following trends and stuff is so common, right? It's like we just kind of like want to jump into something. Why do you think so many business owners just chase the quick win?
I think it goes back to the first chapter where the author talks about the biggest barrier to becoming great is settling for the average. Many companies fail to push for greatness because you just become comfortable. It's like, cool. There's no bad feelings that can come of this. I'm just cruising along. It's, nice and easy. Things are consistent. If I take that next level up, I need to get staff. I need to spend more money on marketing, whatever it may be. I think people just get complacent. And, if that's what makes you happy, that's, totally fine. But if you want to grow your business, you can't be doing that. You can't just be cruising along on not autopilot, but you just can't be cruising along hoping for the best to come.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I guess it ties into, and I know it's something you and Daniel do quite a lot at Grayspace and with clients and with Grayspace in general, but like business strategy and like long-term vision. And I guess they're so intertwined into this, right? Because if you don't have a long-term vision or you haven't set up like where you see you want the business to go in the next kind of 2, 5, 10 years, then you probably do end up chasing those quick wins a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I think it's so important to have direction, so that way you can remain consistent and stay on the path that you need to be on. I've been there firsthand where you see the next shiny object and you're like, I need to do that. I need to do that. So it's important to have a plan. So that way when these things do come up, that temptation's not there to deviate from what you know you should be doing and what you should be working on to go from good to great.
And what was the other one you said, the hedgehog concept?
Yeah. So the hedgehog concept is essentially the center of three, what would you call it? Well, the three things are do what you can be best in the world at, what you're deeply passionate about, and something that drives growth. In the book, it says that they call it the economic engine. And it's that centerpiece. So it's essentially that sweet spot. That
I feel like we need to have like a little Venn diagram.
Yeah, that's the word, Venn diagram. I couldn't think of it.
Three circles, and then there's that crossover chunk in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just that overlap, and that chunk in the middle is what allows you to stay focused and drive that strategy that we were just talking about. So I think that's a really important concept as well. And it helps you on those days where you just don't want to go to work. I mean, I'm sure everyone has them. I know I have them, where you're just like, I can't be bothered today. But it just helps you stay focused, and it helps you get there, especially if what you're doing, if you're passionate about it, and especially if it can, in the book, they say drive economic growth, or that economic engine. If you're passionate about it, be fantastic at it, and you'll be able to drive revenue as well. So if you can find that sweet spot, it just helps.
Yeah. What would you say is your sweet spot at Grayspace?
What are my three things?
Yeah.
Well, what I'm passionate about is helping small business owners. So talking business. Driving our economic growth engine is just the tax and compliance work, or accounting work, but also the strategy stuff too. So I think that's really important. And what you're best in the world at, I don't know, I think that's a massive statement. And I would definitely say I'm not the best, whether it's accountant or business advisor. I'm sure there's always someone better.
You're pretty damn good.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen the movie The Accountant? That guy's pretty good. And he's a killer as well.
Yeah. He's got other stuff going on.
Yeah. I got none of that. But yeah, I think that's where it's at. The sweet spot for me, and what I really enjoy doing, is talking to people, talking to business owners. What are their problems? Any issues that they're having. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. Something at Grayspace that Dan and I have always spoken about, but as we've scaled, it's becoming harder and harder. And it's like responding to emails. I know this is nothing to really do what we're talking about, but it's more so talking about, like, passionate about putting the client first. And that client may just send you an email, and to you it's nothing. It could be something as simple as, hey mate, what does this mean about, I don't know, super, like when's the super deadline? And like, we would get hundreds of emails a day, and it's like, that can wait. But like, that email is occupying that business owner's brain for 24 or 48 hours, however long it takes us to respond. So something that Dan and I have always spoken about is being able to respond to emails within 24 hours to try and keep that consistent, which is dropped off a little bit as we've scaled so quickly, which is disappointing, but it's something that we are working towards. I don't know how I've gone here, but yeah, I just, to me, that highlights like being passionate about business owners and how we want to just make sure we can tick all the boxes and meet all the needs that they have as accountants. So.
Yeah. On that, do you guys have like a rule or like a best practice of like how, from when an email comes in, how long you or the team have to reply? Like, is it like we have to get back to them same day or within 24 hours or 48 hours?
Yeah, ideally it's 24 hours. The workflow software we use is called Carbon, and it's got like an email triage system. So we can actually see the average response time of everyone. Okay. That's how we can track it.
Okay.
It's using it's called Carbon HQ. It's an accounting specific workflow software, but we do use that to track all of that stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept because, and maybe it's just me as a person, when I send an email to another business or like an advisor or like anyone, I never expect a response immediately. Like, I'm surprised if I get a response in the same day sort of thing. Like, I'm like, oh, wow, cool, that's good. But I think maybe my brain just moves really quickly, and I like, once I've sent the email, then it's ticked off.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have like it's like a 24-hour response time. If someone sends an email at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, they have to have heard back from us by same time the next day.
Yep.
It's an interesting concept. Yeah, I guess in the world of where we are right now, and there's digital economy and everything's online, and we can be kind of tapped in to things all the time. Maybe there is this, I don't know why I'm going here, but maybe there is just this habit that we've built around expecting or expectations, and being online all the time means that we're ready to consume information and provide information at any time of the day. Whereas I think maybe 10 years ago, you'd be like, I've contacted that business. I have to wait until they get back to me.
Yep. Whereas now...
Or it was probably a phone call, so you actually probably would have got it in the moment.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Interesting thought.
Yeah.
I think another talking point in the book is when I think it's chapter 4, where he talks about creating a culture where it's what's the word? The truth is heard and the truth is addressed.
Yep.
So it's interesting because it essentially the crux of it is having hard chats.
Yeah, totally.
As a business owner with your staff, no matter how hard it is, not putting it to the side. It's just so important to face those uncomfortable truths in the business. And whether it's, staying on that email topic, if someone doesn't respond to an email, but it's now happened 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Well, why is that happening?
Why is that happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that happening?
Yeah.
Having those truths, those uncomfortable situations where there could be pushback, whatever the case may be, but it's so important that you build that culture where there is that truth, essentially.
That honesty.
Yeah.
And I know Owen says it all the time, clear is kind. If something falls through the gaps, rather than waiting for it to happen again or just being it doesn't really matter, it's not that big of a deal. Hey, notice this thing happened. I think the confronting the brutal facts is kind of what they talk about, and that honesty is an asset.
Yes.
Which I think is quite interesting, because I feel in general, culture in Australia is sort of not no BS, but kind of in that way. But then there's also this really relaxed kind of, people get away with a lot of things, I think, comparative to, businesses that I've worked with in the US, that it's the culture within the organizations are quite different, which is just an interesting...
it is because you're right. It's those polar opposites where it's the Australian culture is renowned for being a straight shooter or saying it how it is.
Yeah.
But there is that laid back part of it as well. And if you let that creep into the business, he'll be all right. That'll be all right.
Yeah. Are you dropping your service standards?
Yeah.
Or what your expectations for your clients, and how is that harming your business?
Yeah.
I think the chapter that, or the key takeaway for me was getting the right people on the bus. That was the biggest one, was essentially first, who have you got in your team, and then kind of what are you doing? And the idea of getting the right people on the bus is make sure you've got the right people there. Yeah. If you've got a destination that you're heading towards and you've got your goals in mind, who have you got in your team? Are they doing the right people on the bus in the right seat? Are they in the right seat? Where are we going? Can they actually do that job, and can they help us get in that direction? And is there a way that you need to get some people off the bus?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because quite often, sometimes roles get kind of shifted around for people, but I think it's okay, who have we got? Prioritize who's in that team. Does this person fit? Is this person doing the job that they should be doing? It kind of goes into traction and the EOS model as well, which is another really great business book. But it's right people, right seat, get the right people on the bus. And if they're not right, then you need to get them off as soon as possible.
Yep.
Which again kind of taps into the Netflix no rules book, which is all about, hiring slow, firing fast kind of thing. Because I think quite often we can have a team of people, and if they're not right, sometimes, the bus drives really slowly, or we don't actually get to where we're going. I think it's super important to make sure that you've got the right people. there's that saying like culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it's like, or culture eats workflows for breakfast, or whatever it is. And if you have, say 5 people in your team or 4 people in your team, and one of those people isn't 100%, their attitude's not 100%, it's like 25% of your business is crumbling or has the potential to crumble as a result of one person, which is pretty huge.
Yeah.
And I think when you think about it that way, you have to go, okay, well, all right, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Interesting as well, like in the book, he talks about having those people before you even think about any strategic vision.
Yeah.
So like, have you got the right people before you even start thinking about the strategy?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is an interesting one. And I think it is probably one of the more important ones because it's a way that I've never thought about that exact scenario before, like strategic thinking. I've always thought that you have the plan and then you put the pieces together. But after I read that, the Netflix pitch deck on culture, it's just, that's also a really good read. It's a PDF you can get on the internet. If you just Google Netflix culture pitch deck, it should come up. It's a few hundred slides. But there's some awesome points in there, and it really ties in well with having, this chapter that we've just spoken about.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's interesting because you can set your strategy in place, but if you don't have the team to execute that strategy, or you don't have the skill set to execute that strategy, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But in the same way, you shouldn't necessarily build a business around people. You should build a business based on where you want that business to go, and then get the right people on or off the bus to help make that possible. But I think that was the one that sort of like, and maybe it's from my like past experience in like a, head of people and culture sort of role. I read this book probably like 3 years ago as part of like a leadership team. And that was one of the key things that stood out.
Yeah, for sure. And it also ties into that, having those hard chats. Because like if you have got this team already, like let's say it's fast forward, and I know, the perfect storm here, you have the people and the strategy, but sometimes you could be 4 or 5 years into it, and it comes down to really reassessing and going, do I have the right people on my team here?
Yeah.
So that can be a really hard chat with a staff member, but sometimes you just need to do it.
Have you ever been in a position where you've had to have one of those really difficult conversations?
Yeah. Like letting people go and whatnot. Never fun. Don't enjoy it at all.
Yeah.
Even if they aren't, even if they've done something wrong or they're not the best at whatever the reason is, it's still someone's job, and that someone has to pay a mortgage or rent or whatever it is. So I don't enjoy that at all. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair.
What about you? I know you were the executioner, weren't you?
Unfortunately, yeah, it was a pretty grim role. Yeah, I mean, I've had to do it, unfortunately, heaps and heaps of times.
Did it get easier?
No. I mean, it got easier in the sense of like I knew the structure, I knew how to be more objective.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you're having a conversation with someone that's going to be very emotional about what's happening in that conversation, and there's no way to avoid that.
Yeah.
And I think if you do avoid it, then I think if you get to a position where you're really comfortable with it, maybe that's a bad thing. Like if you get really comfortable with letting people go.
Teetering on psychopath.
Yeah. Might just be a bit too much, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's 4. So we've spoken about getting the right people on the bus, confronting the facts or like honesty, the hedgehog concept, the flywheel effect. The other one for me, I think, was when they spoke about leadership, like that level 5 leadership, which essentially was like what the author of the book found was that the companies that were able to make that leap from a good company to a great company had this really unique blend of like personal humility in their leadership approach, but also like extremely focused on the success of the business, really determined, ambitious, not just for the company, not just for their own ego, but for the company and the people around them as well. And so like giving credit where credit's due, really valuing like building strong teams, focusing on long-term, all of it is like long-term business goals, not that short-term sort of stuff. And I think, leading with like this calm, which we've spoken about it before, sometimes when things pop up, your emotional response sometimes has to take the back seat, but you have to go and do something to kind of let go of that emotional response. But yeah, I think it's like that authentic, honest approach, but also like kind of like no bullshit. Like we're here to grow a business. This is what we're here for. This is our vision. And then how can we, make this really great company?
And then if that falls on deaf ears, what's the next step? Executioner. PIP, performance improvement plan.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I guess it's, that level of grit as well as humility, I think is important in leadership. I think quite often it's very easy to be more like emotional towards the employee, and sometimes the business takes a back seat. I think it's really common.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like it's really having those hard conversations is really crappy. Like no one wants to have those hard conversations. No one wants to fire somebody. No. So it's like quite often those things either get dragged out for a really long period of time. But I think, it's that, like what you were saying, clear is kind, having those really honest conversations. But then also, really bringing in this like strong level of leadership.
Yeah, so important.
That's there for the right reasons.
Because you don't want to create a culture where everyone knows, it doesn't matter. If I do something wrong, there's no repercussions. So.
And I think it's also really difficult, having been in a position like that before, of like balancing like friendship with like business decisions and like business strategy. That can be really tough as well. But I think it is that like, that's kind of what James talks about in this book, is like that level 5 leadership is like really where humility meets the ability to be like fierce and determined within your business.
Yeah.
Without kind of getting caught up one way or the other.
Yeah, for sure.
Was there anything else that really stood out to you in this book?
I think it's a great read. I think it's a really easy book to read as well. Sometimes with these business books, or these, not self-help, but these business books can be a really hard read. But I think the way that the concepts are explained are really good. And I would strongly recommend any business owner, or if someone's thinking of starting a business, to definitely read it.
Yeah.
I think we've spoken about majority of them. We even touched on discipline as well. The one chapter we didn't touch on is talking about like technology accelerators and how technology can be used as a tool to support and accelerate an already thriving business model, and not like be the crux of creating a great business. And that's something that I've learnt as well, where it's like we've always been systems thinking and trying to come up with the best technology and whatnot. But you need to build, whether it's the process or the back-end system, back-end people, in order to create that great business. And the technology is there, or the apps and the automations are there just to complement that business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really great book. Obviously, we'll put the link in the show notes for Good to Great. I can't remember off the top of my head how many businesses he kind of pulled into his study.
I think it was, I'm going to guess, you go first so I can gauge your answer.
300.
300. I'm going to guess and say there was 1,435 companies.
You Googled it, so did I. I just Googled it.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, 1,000. So there were the research.
I was going to say 300. Actually, to make a book of statements based on 300 companies probably isn't enough.
Yeah, exactly.
The sample size isn't big enough.
So here you go. Fun fact.
Okay.
This is all off the top of my head, and I'm not reading off my computer. So Jim Collins and his research team studied 1,435 companies to identify 11 that were able to make the leap from good to great. They studied their 15-year performance breakthrough, sustained greatness. There was also public companies. And the 11 companies that met the criteria, I'll just list them out quickly.
Yep.
Abbott Laboratories, Circuit City, Fannie Mae, Gillette, Kimberly-Clark, Kroger, sounds German, Nucor, Philip Morris, Pitney Bowes, Walgreens, and Wells Fargo.
Interesting.
That's a big research project. There you go. I was right, Zara was wrong. But yeah, I would strongly recommend it. I think it's a great read for any business owner. even if you're looking just to start your own business, I think it's really important and an awesome read.
Yep, definitely.
Awesome. Thanks, Zara.
Thanks, George.
Take it easy.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you want to hear more from us, you can get daily videos and podcasts on Rask's YouTube channel, or if you want to enroll in a free course on investing, property, business, money, you name it, you can join over 34,000 other students and enroll in a free course on the Rask website. Simply head to www.rask.com.au and follow the prompts. Thanks for watching this Rask podcast.